In my experience, talking about authenticity can be a rather ticklish business. Authenticity seems to have become a buzzword for people to throw around carelessly, but really, it is in the same class of words as creativity. Everyone seems to be talking about creativity, how to cultivate creativity at schools, how to put your creativity into good use, and even how to be creative. When by definition, creativity is only to be found in a small handful of individuals, and something you can't develop if you don't already have. Similarly, if you talk about authenticity to someone, it will either be about something obscure that nobody can really define, though everyone thinks is important, or if you attempt to talk about how you are authentic, you'll risk sounding incredibly pretentious and probably won't be understood anyway. So, what is authenticity, and can you be authentic? A friend of mine recently told me that he dislikes content in which the creator/writer exhibits too much of himself, and that he'd rather they conceal themselves as cleverly and as thoroughly as possible. A cold and impartial recitation of facts accompanied by relevant, personality-less graphics and camera footage. A poem devoid of private feelings, because feelings hinder real-world facts and data. Or a story set in a Truman Show-esque wasteland, filled with robot-like stereotypical characters, unspoiled by the author's touch. What a bleak picture. Many of the greatest works of literature are overtly self-expressive. The Great Gatsby, as an example, opens with the following words. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since. Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, he told me, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you have had. There were 5 first-person pronouns in that. In fact, the entire novel is about Nick Carraway's going from being a passive observer, an insider-outsider, to his declaring Gatsby worth the whole damn bunch put together, while condemning the sanctimonious rest, and to being the only one to participate in Gatsby's funeral and lament his crucifixion, save Gatsby's father and some servants. Basically, it's a story about the author being in his own story. Chroniclers that are themselves characters in their stories are hardly uncommon in the world of fiction. In The Hobbit, or There and Back Again, Bilbo the unsuspecting hobbit finds himself on a, quote, unexpected journey. And the book is presented to the reader as Bilbo's chronicles. And isn't that Tolkien's way as a true author of telling you of his unexpected journeys, his journey mates, his treasures, and his dragons? The Hobbit is unlike The Lord of the Rings in that it isn't a triumph of good over evil story, but rather a personal tale of mystery, wonder, and anguish blended into a piquant cocktail. Indeed, in a predominant culture of superhero movies and James Bond-type villains, where the heroes go up against increasingly bigger and scarier opponents who threaten all that is good in the world, and where the shades of white get whiter and the blacks blacker in proportion to each other, such small and intimate tales as The Hobbit are sorely missed. Though that is not to say that we don't need impossible ideals, infallible heroes destined to triumph over evil and illuminate the darkest darks. We need them oh so desperately. We need them like the Fellowship of the Ring needed Gandalf, his commanding voice and his guiding light. But to me, Bilbo's journey represents another ideal, which is equally, if not more important, the quest for authenticity, that spark of divinity, quote, hidden, often deeply it is true, in the heart of the fattest and the most timid hobbit, waiting for some final and desperate danger to make it grow. For it is as you journey outward into danger that you inch closer to that which lies within. This is probably why Tolkien chooses hobbits as his protagonists, feeble and fearful creatures of little consequence. We, at the beginning of our journeys, are the fearful halflings, though it is as yet unclear what stuff we are made of, whether of soft things or of thick hobbit skin. Having said all of that, I do understand where my friend is coming from in saying he doesn't want to hear old Bilbo ramble on about his adventures. Let's face it, Bilbo's reminiscences were more annoying than inspiring, and as far as creative writing is concerned, pulling a Fitzgerald is far beyond the average writer's reach. Even so, we must go into danger if we want to discover ourselves. Whether you talk or write about it, however, is left to you, though it will surely not harm the imperfect hero's cause if he has a penchant for poetry or a minstrel for a friend.